I'm leaving my screen out in the sun to post-expose, and hopefully that will harden up the remaining stencil in my screen. The majority of my stencil washed out, but what did remain was a part of the screen that was exposed the longest. It wasn't perfect, even that has a lot of pinholes I'm not satisfied with, but for me, I also had the plain stencils of a design I had just to see what it would look like. And I'll admit that got exposed even longer than my step test by about maybe 30 seconds to a minute. So if I add that with the longest time of my exposure, I might be in a better ballpark range for knowing my exposures. So now that I know that number, if I want to go back and retest it, I can. There are a lot of pinholes. Oh, hello, Lucy. Want to check out what I'm doing? So in here, where it should be solid, there was a little bit of washout in my screen, but for the most part, the main stencil held up. Excuse me, Lucy. I can probably go back in with more photo emulsion and a teeny tiny paintbrush and fill this in. I don't want to glob it on, of course, because that'll affect the flatness of the stencil and might cause uneven ink dispersion. You know, if one part is thicker than another, you know, if this was thick for some reason, more ink would get through here than like other parts. So that's why you want to be really careful. Just add as much as you need to fill in what you need. Something I've noticed now is that some of the thinnest lines did not show through, including my registration marks did not come out so well with this. So those were probably overexposed, but they were very thin. So maybe if I were to redesign my registration marks, even though you want them to be really precise, they don't help you if they're not even there at all. So trying to do this at home rather than at a studio with different quality emulsion and stencils, I have to accommodate for that and maybe make larger things. So maybe something closer to one of these marks maybe might work. We'll see. I think this is also a little bit thick in terms of the emulsion, so that might be why. If I look over here, some of these are a lot cleaner than others. This was supposed to be dotted dash line. I will say the text here came out okay, but you know, it's not perfect. I'll admit that I only used one transparency for inkjet transparency, so I probably would have gotten better results had my stencil was more opaque, and also this is also a really big screen mesh. This is for t-shirt printing, so it's like 110 or something, and that does affect how well your emulsion like cures. So that's why I think some of these are especially jagged looking. It's not just my transparencies, but also just the nature of the mesh. So it almost looks more pixely than it did. So who knows? Lots of variables, and trying to figure out which ones to control is difficult and hard to control. But now I have a better ballpark figure where I can make a more educated guess.